Welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast, coming to you every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. This is the podcast where you get to enjoy some of my friends, my guests, comedians, speakers, pastors, whatever you know it, funeral home directors, whatever. The goal from this podcast is number one, to make you laugh if I have a comedian on. Number two, help you in whatever. We had physicians, we had nutritionists, we had funeral home directors, we had different people, marriage counselors, just to help you through this pandemic. So, my guest today is a friend of mine that I've known for many, many years. David Dean has been doing stand up comedy for over 30 years. So that makes us both starting at the same time. His early
Yeah.
days of training found him on the stage of Second City in Chicago. Wow. I did not know that. That's the great improv school, which eventually led to working clubs, festivals, cruises, churches, and other venues across the country. David has entertained troops at military bases all over the US, Germany, and Guantanamo Bay. Ah, so you met some of my family members. And
They told
Cuba.
yeah.
He is David is he's a good friend, and recent him and Craig Cross, which I know he came out of my church Crossroads, recently co-authored a book titled Touchy Subjects, which can be found on Amazon. His latest CD, Clap For Me, can be heard on Live USA, Sirius Satellite Radio. That means he's getting checks every month. iTunes and Pandora Radio, which I'm not getting any of that money yet. Over the last 15 years, David had led week-long mission trips to the Dominican Republic with Mike Williams, I'm sure.
Yeah.
David and Saint Betsy, that's what he calls his wife. I respect that. Of 32 years, live in Huntington, Indiana. Parents of two young adults, Alex and Hannah. So, what have you been doing during the quarantine, Mr. David Dean?
Well, I one of the highlights for me was a couple weeks ago seeing you and your son in Provo, Utah for a dry bar comedy special recording. Um, isn't it funny, Naz, that we had not seen each other in a number of years, but like true comedians, true friends, you see each other and you pick up from where you left off like 8 years ago. You leave each other
Exactly.
8 years ago, mid sentence. Hey, I was wondering sometime if we need to, and then you fast forward 8 years, and I finished the sentence.
That's true. You know, like when we get together at the CCA sometimes or wherever we get on the same gig, which doesn't happen much, but we're really like we know what's going on. We feel like we've been, we're going on the same highway. It just, some guy, sometimes you're ahead in a different place or someone I'm in a different place, but we get back on the same highway and that's true. That's very true. So, you're from Huntington, Indiana, right?
I am, yeah. That's why I'm wearing this today.
It's 85 to 90 today.
Trying to figure out where the mute button is. What a
I'm
mute
not.
me.
Hey, we're purple now, so I don't know if that's how we should compare. It's not how the weather. What color are your state now for the pandemic?
It depends on the week. It depends on who you talk to. Uh, I believe I think they call it like a level. I think we're like at level 4. Does that sound right?
Tier 4, you mean? Tier
Tier
4, that's
4,
the
like
easiest.
so you have to wear a mask indoors, but level 4 also means that you're allowed to yell awful things to people who don't wear a mask, and there's no
Oh,
punishment. I think that's what level 4 is. I think. I'm not sure.
I thought they only do that in California. Do they do that in Indiana where people scream at you if you're not wearing a mask?
Boy, we're just jumping right into the mix early here, aren't we, Ned? I mean, could you ever imagine like 20 years ago that the word mask would be so polarizing as it is today? I mean, it's a really Americans love their freedom, they love their liberty. We don't want to be told what to do,
Mm-hmm.
when to do it. We want to do it on our own terms. And uh, I got to be honest with you, I'm not a big mask guy, but if your family member is prone to a sickness, or somebody that you love and they're near and dear to your heart, they have a pre-existing condition, they're diabetic, they have asthma, I'm going to wear that mask for that person. And I'm not trying to jump on my high horse and say how great I am or how not. I'm just simply
No, no,
saying that I'm doing
you're a
out of
great guy.
love and respect for that person, even though I don't like to wear them, but I do that for that individual who may be prone to a sickness.
See, I had mom who's 84. She lived with us for 4 months. I mean, since the pandemic, she did 4 months with our house. So we had to be careful. Plus, my kids are 22 and 20, and then the 12, and they're like, if you leave the house without a mask, they're gonna scream at you. So, but
Yeah,
when they're with their friends, they don't. They. I'm like, what happened to you? You scream at me to wear my mask, but
I know there's just, I guess, Naz, that's kind of what I struggle with, like the inconsistency. Like if you walk into a restaurant, you have to have the mask, COVID is there. But when you sit down to eat among six people, there's no COVID in that. Like my wife and I, we took a flight a couple of days ago down to Florida, and inevitably, within minutes, she's asleep. And I think it's the cutest thing ever to watch her head just go back. She's out in no time. She has her mask on, and I've got mine on. I just happen to have it under my nose just briefly. I think my glasses were steaming up. I take a picture. Most people see the humor in the picture, like, oh, there's David taking a picture of he and his wife. It's a selfie. She's asleep in no time. But I've got a few family members and friends who are like, COVID police. I don't see the mask over the nose.
you know. You're right.
Okay.
Some people feel the need to, you know what? This is an opportunity for people who want to control to be able to control. I think the coronavirus doesn't like food or drinks. So if you're eating or drinking, it's okay. But if you're not,
When you eat and drink, it will leave you alone.
yeah.
That's why I'm probably a little overweight right now because I just thought I'm going to use this as like it's my immune system. I'm going to protect myself and just continue to eat. And you remember when they whoever they are told us that uh, coronavirus does not like heat and humidity and sunshine and outdoors. Naz, you live in the Mecca, the hotbed of heat of America. You
Yes.
live where there's heat constantly, and it's taking off. I don't know the rhyme or reason or the stats. I don't understand it.
I know. Listen, when you heard the news in March, back in March, we're closing the country. Comedians are non-essential. We don't know when's the next when we're gonna allow it to do that. What kind of thought came into your mind at that? So it's fearful or whatever it is.
I don't know that I don't know that reality smacked me in the face until I started getting calls and emails from jobs saying we're either going to cancel or postpone. Like it's
Yes.
never like it's never a reality until it hits your checkbook, and then when it hits your checkbook, then you're like, oh, it's real. This is real.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting paid and you're doing jobs, and you and I are self-employed, when we are on stage, that's when we're making a mortgage payment, and uh, apparently we're non-essential worker, which would be the greatest title ever for a CD, non-essential comedy. I always thought that would be great. But when those gigs started to rebook, reschedule, cancel, whatever, then I'm looking in the mirror going, what is this? What is this real? Is this actually happening? That was an eye opener.
Yes. And how are you handling it?
Well, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm talking to you. You're in the same boat.
Right.
Uh, uh, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Naz. It's been tight, but fortunately, here in Indiana, we have a really low cost of living.
Mm.
Uh, so when I hear of mortgage payments and rent prices and medical issues and throughout the country, we're pretty fortunate here in the Midwest, and that I can kind of not kind of I do what I do because I live where I live, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And
I see.
so I don't have a huge overhead. Comedians are fortunate we don't have like tons of trailers and trucks and lights and sound and everything.
Right.
And it's just a microphone and some clothes. And sometimes uh, it's a blessing in disguise to have that because we don't have a high overhead. But I mean, if I start looking at numbers, and I'm not sharing anything novel with people, yourself included, but when you start looking at numbers and you start adding things up, and it can paralyze you with fear.
Mm-hmm.
The fear is just like, just going to let up. I mean, every comic, everybody that's self-employed has gone through a dry stage, a dry period. But this is definitely unique.
Uh, let's go back to February 2020, before the pandemic, or let's say December of last year. Okay, you're sitting there, David Dean. Okay, has been doing comedy for 30 plus years, and you go, were you where you thought you would be in 30 years, or it's much less, or were you satisfied with where you at before the pandemic in career wise, or there's always like, man, by now I should have been here?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure where here is, but you're exactly right. I think as a comic, we're always a bit insecure. We're always kind of nervous. We're always kind of looking over our shoulder. We've got a little paranoia, running through our blood. We're always worried about the next job, the next gig.
Yes.
And when phone calls and emails don't come in, then you start to ask yourself, okay, is it pandemic related, or is this God's way of saying, hey, you had a good run, you're done? I don't know. I mean, it plays with your head for sure, but boy, if you rely on the people for request, affirmation, um, and you're not going to God to find out who you are, not necessarily as a comic, but as a person that follows Christ, you need to probably look in the mirror a little bit longer and ask yourself, who am I listening to?
You know what, David? I had the same. I don't know why. This is normally I let the guests speak all the time, but it's the same feeling I felt like, like before you do a big event and you go, this event is going to be a great opportunity for me to go to the next level, and then after the pandemic, you go, was that the highlight of my career, where I wasn't really thinking of it as a highlight, and I started saying, is this over for us or not? And then last week, my sister in law was here. She wanted to see Pastor David Jeremiah in San Diego. And so we drove all the way to San Diego, and we're sitting. And the first thing he opened with, and it's like, and I was praying, Lord, is this just temporary? This is temporary. This is going to pass. Is the career going to go back? Is the momentum going to get back to where we were? And he just opened up. He was talking about Rembrandt, the artist, and other. And he goes, you know what? And he mentions 10 or 12 names. You probably remember all these scientists, authors, and painters. He said their best work came after they were 80 to 90 years old.
Wow.
And it was one of those like, wow. And it was the Lord said, you know what? Your best work is not yet here.
Hmm.
So if that was, to me, that was a confirmation like, hey, hang in there, and it's gonna open up, because your best work. And sometimes we think, okay, because think of the comedians, think of George Carlin. No, not John, not Carlin. What's his name, George Burns, and all
Hmm.
these comics, Bob Hope. They all were performing at age 100 or 95.
Right. Yeah. And Carl Reiner just died here not too long ago. What was he, 92, 93 years old?
Yes.
93 years old, and that was one of the founding cast members of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He was an incredible writer. He was on Your Show of Shows, and with Sid Caesar and Mel Brooks. He was an incredible mind, a comedy genius, and was still working up until the point that he died at 90, what, 3, 4 years old. So what you
Yeah.
just said, there's a praise God we're not musicians, right? I
Right.
mean, there's something about like seeing people our age. When I say our age, I mean I just turned double nickels, but to walk on stage with a guitar and try to rock it out, it's painful to watch.
Or a drummer. A drum. You don't see 80-year-old on a drums.
But comedians get away with it. You could be old and still be hip and relevant and edgy and funny. And I think your shelf life is a little longer than that of a musician. You're spot on, my friend.
And you know what? Some people listening, watching right now, going, "That's not relating to me." No, this is an encouragement to you guys listening because your best work, regardless of what you do, is not there yet. It's not. You haven't got there. So that's an encouragement because that pandemic does that to us, makes us think things are over. This is over. This is we can never go back out again and do events. We can never go here. We can never, have birthday parties and hug and kiss every. No, this is gonna pass. This will pass, and
Yes.
speaking of that, how? So you were born in Indiana, right, David?
Yeah.
What was? I love your comedy, guys. If you haven't heard David Dean, go watch. You talking about your mom and dad in the car on a Sunday, your mom on the phone, your dad, so they can't touch you, so you're beating your sister up, and your mom. This is so. Now you had a normal. What made you a comedian? What was?
How does it work? I don't know. What's the formula for a person to say I'm going to do comedy? I don't know that we ever you don't verbalize that like when you're a kid. Hey David, what do you want to do someday when you're an adult? What are you going to and the common thing, the safe thing to say is, well, I'll be a teacher, or I'll be an accountant, or I'll be the manager of a grocery store. That's the safe thing. But for a person to say, I want to be a comedian, there's a lot of silence, and so that created some self doubt. But we didn't grow up in the church. My mom and dad became Christians later in life. They were in their 30s. They were hippies. For years we were brought up on the band and Joe Cocker and the Allman Brothers Band and Rod Stewart. And then overnight it went to the Bill Gaither Trio and Sandy Patty and Happy and Vestal Goodman. It's like, what in the name of sense is going on in the house? What's the noise? And so there was this crazy transformation. But God bless our tiny church in Huntington, Indiana, East State Street Church of God on East State Street. Uh, God bless them. I mean, when there was a chili supper or a potluck, and they wanted 10 minutes of entertainment, old middle school David Dean, hey David, come up and do a couple magic tricks, or do some juggling, or do an impersonation of your Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Hinthorn. I would do those things, and the church laughed. And so, Naz, I think for any parents or grandparents that are watching and listening right now, if you have young children, uh, foster that.
Hmm.
It's a miracle grow on that, and just see what God does with it.
So, what was your first paid gig?
First paid gig. So my dad was a middle school teacher, and there was the middle school that he taught had a Christmas party, and I attended this school, which made it even. This makes the story even more awkward. And at the time, I was for about 3 or 4 years, I did magic there from like fifth grade up through about seventh or eighth grade, and I had done some shows, some Cub Scout parties, some birthday parties, and things like that. But this particular school where my dad taught said, we're having a company party. Would you come and do a magic show? So I
Hmm.
remember doing the magic show at the company Christmas party for my dad's place of employment. And there are all my teachers in the crowd with their spouses.
That's hard.
Your first thought is there's a couple teachers you wanted to come up and do the old saw the lady in half trick and it not work, and just actually saw her right in half. But it was the oddest feeling, entertaining. Uh, these are people all day who had said, "Hey, sit down, keep your mouth shut, pay attention, get your homework done." And now I'm breaking out of jail, so to speak, and doing whatever I want on stage. And to see my teachers laugh, and I'm sure that the tricks probably weren't the greatest, at that time, but I got done. I walked off the stage, and Mr. Barnes, the principal, shook my hand and handed me an envelope. And I'm like, the heck is this? So we get in the car. Mom and Dad drive me home. I'm in the back seat, the dome light, and whoa, $25! Woo! Payday! I mean, it
That's
was eureka.
you got hooked.
Yeah.
Oh, and when did you become full time? as a comedian?
About a month ago. Um,
Again, right? A month ago, we went back. That's
about
right. Nobody's full time right now. I know.
I always tell people, I say, especially young married couples, um, have have a side gig. Don't think you're above taking painting houses or being a greeter at Walmart. Don't think you're above that. Do what you can to put bread on the table and pay the bills. And when your side hustle gets in the way of your passion, then you need to sit down and go, I need to make a decision because this dream gig is taken off. Do I
Mm,
pursue this and put all my time and energy there full time? Or do I continue to do the side hustle nights and weekends? Or is it flip flop? And so when I was in Chicago, I left Indiana and went to Chicago to do stand up, hoping and praying that Lorne Michaels would see me and I'd get plucked out of Second City. And the next week I'd be a cast member on SNL, which never happened. Uh, but that was my dream. But I was doing a lot of like private parties and a lot of private shows as a Christian. They were all clean. Working Second City, that was all free. Um,
mm.
but about 1988, about 6 months into our marriage, I was doing two or three side gigs, side hustle jobs, and shows at night and shows on the weekend. When you're working in Chicago, you can work constantly and never see the
Right,
same faces ever. You
right.
can do six shows in Glendale Heights and never see the same face. And so you're in a metropolitan area as you are, and I'm working all the time and doing some side hustles during the day. And 6 months into the marriage, Betsy's like, I think you need to pursue this. I think
Hmm.
God's calling you to do this. And I just said, I'm kind of scared. And she says, we all are. But if this is who you are, it's the gift God gave you, just pursue it. And so with her support, I can't imagine couples like 20 years into the marriage where you're making great money, you're working for a firm, and then you say to your spouse, hey, guess what? I think God is calling me to be a yoga instructor. There's no pay, there's no money, but I think I'm going to pursue this full time.
And I'll be wearing leggings the whole time.
But I mean, the fear of like a couple who's been getting a paycheck, a steady Eddie paycheck every 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you drop that bomb on your spouse. I mean, that's frightening. But when you're young and dumb and in love, you just,
And
like
that's
you,
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome. You know what, for Betsy, that's my hat off to her because
yeah,
not many spouses do that. A lot of entertainers struggle with the fact that their spouses just as, and I'll give you the just one of the thing that's comforting. Like, let's say I go to David Dean and say, David, there's a gig next month for you for $10,000. Okay, you get excited because we get excited on hope. We hope can keep an entertainer going for a while. But trying to translate that to your wife, and she said, well, show me the money. And then the gig never happens. And the guy never promised you is going to happen. He said, hey, next week I might hire you for a $10,000 gig. That's where your hope goes up, and you kind of, that's all you think about. I'm going to get the gig. I'm going to get the gig. Where your spouse doesn't think that way, or they don't have the same hope that you do. So that's where I see sometimes with other communities. Praise God for Betsy and praise God for Maha.
right.
They never, they've always supported regardless. But that's the idea. It's like, how can you give the same hope you have to your spouse and have her support your career in the process?
Wow, that's to any men watching and listening to have your spouse. Let me just say, ladies, and help me out here, Naz. Tell me if I'm wrong, but
Uh,
we never completely outgrow, or we get too old to think I don't need to hear that I'm good. I mean, our moms told us growing up, you have a special gift. I am so proud of you, and I love you, and what you're doing, it makes me beam. Every man loves to hear that from their mom, and I'm telling you, we don't outgrow it. We don't ever get tired of hearing that from our spouse. Betsy
Mm.
doesn't have to say that to me because she loves me and she's my biggest cheerleader.
But you want
Even
to hear it.
I my self-esteem, my self-worth, it triples instantly when I hear her say, I think you're doing a great job, honey. I mean, that those words are huge.
But isn't that what we want? Isn't that why we go on stage? I mean, we as comedians, we have that insecurity, and we know it, and we make money off it. So we're not, we're not ashamed if someone said, "Hey, you're insecure." Yeah, I make good money being insecure. But isn't that what we want when we go on stage? I mean, what do you?
That's a great question. I had friends ask me a couple weeks ago, does comedy define you? You know, does your work define you?
Of course.
And in some ways it does. You know, you and I, we've gone through 4, 5, 6 months where you didn't hear that magical sound of laughter. It's a drug. It is Christian cocaine. When you hear that, you're like, I want more of that. That feeds me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you and I have done it long enough. We put it in perspective and say, I don't necessarily need it, but I sure do love hearing it. I mean, it is who God created us and how He created us to do what we do. But does comedy define me? I kept thinking to myself, gosh, this kind of feels like semi-retirement. Is this what semi-retirement is like? And
No.
I'm not sure that I like it.
No, it's not semi-retirement. It has nothing. I don't think a comedian should even think of the word retirement. I mean,
But but
that's silly. That
I know, but when I'm asking you, did it give you kind of a glimpse of what, like, if we were done tomorrow, the last 4 or 5 months, what it would be like? And honestly, for me, awful.
Me too. And I mean, that's why we thought. I mean, I used to think I'm doing this for the money, and I'm doing this as a career, but I'm also sharing Jesus. I'm doing that. But you go without going on stage, live stage, and hearing the laughter for a few months. Something happens to you. Even my wife is like, "You're irritated. You are irritated." And I go, you know, and I was like, I would do it for free. I mean, I just put me on stage, let people laugh. I don't need money. I don't care. I apologize for every time I said I can't take this gig or I can't do this. Just put me in front of prisoners,
So
middle school, which I never want to do, but I'll do it.
so I mean, we would get together with two other couples quite regularly during the pandemic, and we would go out to our garage, and I called the garage the situation room. That's where Wolf Blitz. That's the situation room where they take care of the problems of the world, right? So we would
Right.
go out there. I prepare food. We'd sit around the table. We would just hobnob and just talk about life issues, marriage, kids, the whole 9 yards. And anything that I said that was off the cuff that people laughed,
Write it down.
someday when I start working again, I'm going to use that. That's a so that was kind of like my outlet for about March, April, May, for about 3 or 4 months. Every night I did story time with Uncle David, just like
Mm.
you're doing your live
Yeah,
podcast.
that's an outlet. Yeah, that's a
And
daily outlet.
it is, yeah, I read children's stories every night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then it created kind of like this niche following. And so everywhere I would go here in my small town, they're like, hey, what story you reading tonight? I'm like, I don't know, Dr. War and Peace. I don't know. I mean,
Warren P.
was, it was an outlet like what you're doing here. It was for comedians. We have to find some creative outlet or we'll just go insane.
I went back to read the Purpose Driven Life
Mm.
by Rick Warren, and one of the things is you start noticing like sometimes we are driven by fear. What drives me sometimes is fear of lack of money, fear of not being approved, get approval, fear of this, fear of that, and some people are driven by materialism. What drives David Dean? What drives you to do what you do?
When you're on stage and you've got a family in the crowd, and you and I, the kind of material we do, I'm not saying it's not family friendly. It certainly is, but but probably middle school, high school would be the threshold of where that person would get our
Right.
jokes,
We're
our
not
humor.
doing Noah's jokes, right?
Knock, knock, two sheep walk into a
Uh,
nursery. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, um, but to watch generational laughing,
mm.
I don't think you can put a price tag on that. I'll never forget, probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, our son was in high school, and we took Alex, my son, and my dad and myself, the three of us, three generations. I don't know if we've ever done this before. We went to see a live show. We saw Brian Regan. He
Oh
did
yeah.
an hour 15. I think he maybe used one mild profanity, but no innuendo. It was simply self-deprecating, goofy, silly, awkward. But I remember I was sitting in the middle, my son to my left, my dad to my right, and we're watching and we're laughing and we're looking at each other and we're wiping tears. And uh,
You can't put a price on that.
I don't. I'll never forget that moment for the rest of my life. I don't remember the jokes he told, the stories he told, Naz, but I remembered the feeling of my dad and my son and I, just the three of us laughing so hard. I thought as we walked out, I'll cherish this for the rest of my life. It's a moment, and I think you and I, when we have those moments where you look into the crowd and see somebody wiping tears because they're laughing so hard, and you've moved on to the next bit and they're still laughing. It's very, very. It's not only humbling, but it's lightning in a bottle. It's magic.
It is, and it happens. I mean, in your audience, there is generations together sitting
Yeah,
laughing, and that's
yeah.
uh
Have a family walk out. They don't have to say to their kids, "Hey, when we get home, we have to talk to you about what he said from the stage. There were some things that was kind of adult." I never want that. I never want to have parents apologize to their kids for something I
right,
said on stage. It's just not our makeup.
right, and that's praise God for that. That's you know what I used to think every comic can do that, and then I learned it's not. Even if they clean it up, like what you watch on Dry Bar. When you watch comedy on Dry Bar, even though the comedians, I mean, I love Dry Bar. You're gonna get a great reviews and follow it. But when you watch it, you can tell which comedians are Christian clean, which comedians are cleaning up their act for the show. It just there's something there, not the words, but the content and the attitude. It's
You're 2 weeks ago, we were there in Provo with our agent Tim Grable and another comic. Your son, by the way, who hit a home run at 22 years old. The kid went on stage, and he was as calm and collected as I've ever seen a young comic. I went on stage. I'd not been in front of people in months, and my heart was beating through my chest. And your son went up and just he killed it. But the other comic we worked with, super good guy.
yeah,
But I remember him saying in the green room, I gotta be careful I don't say when I'm in my routine doing my jokes and stuff where I don't say oh my god or oh god. They warn me about not saying oh god. Not even an issue for us. Like what you
yeah.
just said, you have to clean up your act. It's not. That's not a part of our routine. Why would you even have to think about that?
This is funny because this guy is from New York, and we were in the green room. You were on stage. He was ready to go up. He was kind of, even though he's been doing it for I don't know 30 years, he's been nervous. He was pacing back and forth. You can tell he was nervous, and I said, "Hey, can I pray for you?" He
Mm.
goes, "What?" He goes, "Can I?" I said, "Can I pray for you?" He goes, "Sure." So I started to pray, and I put my arm around his shoulder and prayed in the name of Jesus. I can just the look on his face, like this doesn't happen in green rooms. This doesn't happen, but it's so neat to be able to do that. But you're right. You can tell. Yeah, who can do it to where the audience leaves and don't have to explain to their kids what happened. That leads me to the next question, David. If you were not a comedian, what would you be doing?
I've been asked that a number of times. Honestly, I don't know. I have no other tangible skill set.
Oh, so good. I'm not alone. But
I,
what
I'm not.
what what do you think? What would
I love to grill. I love to prepare food. I love to. I'm kind of the chef in the house. I take care of the meals. Um, I don't know that I could pull it off for a living. I watch food shows and Food Network and have these cooks and chefs. I'm like, that's another league. I
Mm.
mean, I kind of go back. I have salmon as we speak. I have 4 pieces of salmon on the grill. They're lifted off the heat, so it's not direct heat. I sliced lemons. I put the salmon on the lemons. I used some dry basil from my garden, some
Mm.
zest Italian, some olive oil, and then I put a smoke box off to the side. So it takes about 90 minutes at about 250 degrees. You want to go low and slow when you smoke and grill
In the
food.
barbecue or in the smoker?
I actually did this on my gas grill, but I do have a smoker. Had you not called me today, I would be out there doing the caveman smoker. Where you put the smoke in wood chips in and your smoke. But I went gas grill, indirect heat, smoke box. Do people like the food? Do they compliment me? Yes. Can I make a living doing that? I don't think I do. I honestly, how many
Well, if you
times have
put
you
10
thought to
years.
yourself, I mean, if God said this pandemic is bringing you to a halt, what else do you do? I don't know what else I would do. It's frightening.
Me neither. And that's yeah, and that's one of the questions. Is like, what's your biggest fear? I'm sure this is what it is for all of us. Like, okay, well, this is what we know how to do. I'm sure as a comedian you can teach. Definitely, if you can go on stage and have 2, 3 thousand people in your audience, and for an hour and a half you can control them and make them listen to you, and we can tell stories. We can, but then we're getting into a pool of much bigger competition. A lot of people can teach. So yeah, it is a fear. It is. Yeah, I mean, there is faith, but yeah, until you get that faith strong, you go, "Oh, if this doesn't happen, what else can I do?"
Do you ever lie awake at night and you think about the jobs you've done, and then you think about the upcoming jobs, how slim they are, and then you start going deeper into the recesses of your mind, and you begin to question what could I do if worse came to worse, push came to shove, what else would I do? And I'm being very candid with you right now. I'm not sure what I would. I don't know who would hire me. I saw a guy in the grocery store a couple of days ago with our mask on. I think it was who I thought it was, but we have to kind of look through each other's eyes. And then he owns a small diner. And I said, Jimmy, I said, if the comedy thing closes down, could I come work for you? And he looks me in the eyes. It says never. If you want to be he
Here
says,
goes
if you
your
want to be a
hope.
greeter, if you want to greet people, tell a joke and bless them, table for two, great. But he says, I would never allow you in my kitchen.
Here goes your backup plan.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, let me. Here's a question. What was Betsy's most complaint about your career?
What did she complain about?
What's her most complaint? What is something that irritates her the most about your career?
Okay, so help me out on this. So for a lot of years, your material is what you observe or what you overhear, and then you
Mhm.
take it to the stage and you embellish it. So for years, it was always things I heard that our kids say, and our kids as friends. There was a lot of teenage humor, observational humor, and now that we're empty nesters, I've incorporated a bit more of my lovely bride, and I'm not always so sure that she's complete.
She's
I don't
not.
know. There'll be times she'll see a clip on YouTube or a video, or she'll hear a bit. I don't talk like I never say. Why would you say? I don't. When did I say? There's some cross examination when I get home. Like like did I really? Well, kind of. Yeah, you kind of did. So yeah, I mean,
We're honest. We're comedian. We're honest. We open up, sometimes wait a little too much. And then the spouse and the kids like, why did you have to share that? I go, I'm
But can I
sorry. I
ask you
should have
this
asked.
question? That's right. How many times after a show do people come up to you and say, "I when you did the routine on your kids or your wife, you were talking about my family."
Many, many times. You're
Many
right. We're all
times.
the same.
We're not pulling some crazy line or some crazy story out of the blue. I mean, this is the to me this is the and my wife does not like attention. She doesn't like the spotlight on her. She had the greatest comedy line I've ever heard in my life, right in the heart of the pandemic. Bless her heart, she continued to work. She works with special needs adults and
Oh.
seniors, and she just has a heart of gold. She's patient, and every day that she she left for work, I was beginning to sleep in a bit longer and longer. But Naz, I swear to you, right in the heart of the pandemic, one morning she leaves her work, she leans down, she kisses my forehead as I'm still in bed, and she whispers in my ear, "Love you, have a good day," and pause, pause, "Don't forget to bathe," and walks out the door. That's comedy gold.
I
I,
know.
I
That's
probably had
funny.
not I had not gone near a shower in 3 days, and she
Oh,
lovingly
man.
says, "Don't forget bathe."
That, that's funny. That is funny. Maha's the same way. Maha's very funny. She's hilarious. But don't put her. First time when we got married, uh, I think I was doing a marriage conference, and did great. After the show, the pastor came up and he said, "Oh, bring your bride and let's talk about marriage." So I said, "Maha, come on up." And after the show, she gave me that look. She didn't say a word. Like, if you ever do this again,
I'll kill you.
I'm gonna kill you. And that was it. I've never
while
asked
we're
her.
while you're sleeping, I will put a pillow over your face. I swear to you, I will never do that again.
Remember, she's Palestinian. She scares me. No, I'm just kidding. Me too. Uh, okay. Let's see. I'm gonna ask you. This is just new. I've never done this before with comedians, but I want you a quick response on something. What do you say to a dog owners that don't clean up after their dog?
Get a cat.
Okay, rude shop assistant. Someone that works behind the counter is rude to you.
Give him a big hug and kiss, and just say, I tested positive."
Okay, door to door salesman knocking on your door. What do you tell him?
Um, uh, maybe don't answer.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
answer
People,
answer the door. Answer the door in a bikini.
yeah, that will turn them away. People who talk loudly on their mobile phones. What do you say to them?
Oh, that's awful. It's the worst. It's the worst. Noise canceling headphones. Make an investment today. It's the worst, Naz. How many times have we landed? The plane lands, and what's somebody 3 rows behind you? "We just landed. We
Yeah.
landed. We just landed. Pick me up. Pick me up. Pick me up. Baggage claim. Pick me up. We just landed." It's awful. It's
You,
awful.
one time I did this, and people will not think I did it. I did it. We were our flight was delayed for 4 hours. They put us into the lounge, and this person, it was a guy. He was so loud to the point I walked next to him on the phone. I said, "Are you done with the stall?" I walked away.
You can find you can find the most remote region of an airport where there's like construction. They've got a police line, nothing. You can't go into a certain area of an airport. I will sit there just to read a book or pray or have quiet time.
Yeah.
Inevitably, a businessman will come within 5 feet of me and get on his phone and start barking. It is I just have this personality where people are like, "I want to go near you and talk loud on my phone."
What do you say to people who park in handicap parking when they're not disabled?
Oh, yeah. I don't believe in mafia hitmen. I'm a pacifist per se, but
Uh-huh.
that would be one where I would call up Guido and say, "Hey, I've got a jackwagon over here in the parking lot. Can you take a hammer to his knee and make him?" disabled.
Make him, yeah, give him a reason to park there.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you say to people with strong BO standing too close to you? Well, I'll have your wife say it.
You stink.
Okay, people eating smelly food on the seat on the plane next to you.
Oh, it happens all the time. It happens.
Uh,
If you're going to eat that and I like that, you better share it. But if it's something I don't like, uh, would you mind if I burped in your face or your mask? I mean, it happens all the time. Isn't it amazing? Like manners go out the window when we travel.
yes. Somehow people either brood or they're stressed out and stuff. You're going on vacation. Why are you stressed out?
And if you say something, if you address the person who's talking loud on the phone, or the person that's right next to you eating a bag of pork rinds, if you say something, you're the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to say, just keep your mouth shut and endure it, because that's what Christians are supposed to do. But if we say something and we say it in love, then we're the idiot. We're the aggressor.
I know the answer to the next question, but I want to hear it from you. Would David Dean rather do a women's event or a men's event, if that's, all women or all men?
Listen, I say all the time, I I would much rather do a women's event any day of the week. You and I have both. You're good friends with Shonda. I am too. I saw you had her on your podcast. Shonda's just we've worked with her, and she'll go out and do 20 minutes, and then she'll bring you out, and you come out and do 10 or 15, and it is the energy could light
Yes.
small cities. I mean, it is unbelievable. I've done men's conferences. I've done men's breakfast at 5 o'clock. Why men would want a comedian at 5 o'clock in the morning while they're eating breakfast? I don't know. That's the worst setup ever.
I've
We're
done
David.
that a lot.
We're having a Bible study. We're going to be studying the book of Numbers, and we're going to be eating pancakes. This is at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then we're going to pray. We're going to do a foot washing, and then we're going to have you do your humor. Would you like to be a part of that?
No.
No, no, that's an awful setup. But
Yeah.
women know how to do it. It's Saturday night. There's 4,000 women at First Baptist. You're going to do 20 minutes in between speakers. That's a comic's dream.
I did for the Houston radio station, the big one, KSBJ, and I did 2 years of like 3 nights of girls' night out. There were about 4,000 women in the audience. I was supposed to do 45 minutes with Carrie Job. Uh, Out of the four, I did probably 20 minutes of material in a 45 minutes. They would not stop laughing. I went out, David. I sold 12 grand in one show, and that was more than I sold in a whole year in other men's events.
Right?
I was like, you know
Because
what, Lord,
please,
I,
Lord, please, Lord, let me do more women's
I'll do a
conference.
gender change for that. I'll change my gender for that. If you can guarantee me 100 women show a year, I'm changing my gender.
Do you know how when you're on stage and you have a Freudian slip and there's a pause and then the crowd laughs hard for 30 seconds because you messed up a word or a phrase? So years ago, I said one of my favorite jobs. I love to do comedy for women. Not long ago, I was doing a conference. It was a big women's conference, and the people just started laughing because I said it was a big women's conference, and I didn't know what I said. I wasn't sure what I said.
I know.
I've used that line for years and years, and I still act like, whoops, didn't mean to say that. I meant to say it was a conference where there were numerous women of all
Right.
sizes, skinny, big, middle, all sizes. But you're right. I mean, yeah, when you do a women's event, you better load up on merchandise. You better have that PayPal card machine ready to roll because you're going to sell some
Um,
stuff.
and they're fun. What do you think of we both been doing comedy 30 years. We paid our dues. We traveled. We had to go drive from one show to another for 6 hours, get on a plane, do an event, and hard work. And now people go on TikTok, stick their tongue out, and they do a little butt move, and they're getting 10 million views on YouTube or on TikTok and stuff. And they're the ones that people want right now. We want to hire you, but I haven't been on stage. You're funny. What do you say? What do you think of that?
Well, I've tried to do butt dances, and I've been banned from a few social media sites for doing.
Oh, you're right. You're in Indiana. That's right. Come to California. You're fine.
The thing, the thing that bothers me are the reality show, the talent shows where the person has been singing and they tell the judges we've been singing and we've been hitting every bar and every concert. We've been doing shows for the last 18 months.
Wow.
I mean, they say those things. We've been working so hard for 18 months, and this is a dream we've always had. And so they're catapulted into social consciousness where everybody knows this person's name because they won America's Got Talent or The Voice or whatever. And I think after a year or two, a lot of these individuals become a trivia question. So I mean, wouldn't you rather have like you and I, where we fly under the radar, but we've got longevity? I
Right.
don't mind that. Years ago, I wanted that popularity. I wanted to be a household name. I don't know if I want that. I kind of like just being the steady Eddie comic that works a lot. That a lot of people don't know my name, and I'm kind of okay with that.
That's great. You probably, if they know you, you'll be canceled by now.
Yeah, right.
What do you think of that whole political correctness? What is your thought,
Boy,
David?
it's dangerous, isn't it? I mean, um, we went to see our son in Florida and over the weekend, and he's almost 30. He's a police officer.
Mm.
He tells people he works for the city so he doesn't cause controversy.
That's sad.
You ever think the day would come when you have to lie about what you're not? He's not lying, but he's not being completely forthright. So it avoids controversy. So I think sometimes we say things to avoid controversy. We don't want to say honestly, Naz. I mean, you know this as well as anybody. And in front of an audience, I mean, I have a filter, but I'm not sure if what I'm saying, if I step on toes, if I'm hurting feelings, if I can I just tell you a quick story?
Sure, of course.
So I do a lot of shows where we have multi-ethnic people in the crowd, and I was doing a show not long ago in what we call like
Oh yeah,
Amish
I've
Indiana.
done. Yeah, by the Blue
Look at
Gate
that
Theater in
right here.
Shipshawana.
Yeah, the owner's Mel Reedsiger, and he brings in
Yeah.
clean comedy, and I was doing a joke about the Amish. They're beautiful people. We have Amish friends, and there was some just incredibly wonderful people of color from Detroit there that night, and man, they were laughing so hard. And I joked about a woman who was of color. I said, well, I'm guessing since you enjoyed the Amish humor so much, you probably know the something along the lines. I said like your name. I'm guessing your name's Yolanda uh, Reedsiger or Yolanda, an Amish last name, and people
Yoder.
laugh.
Yoder.
Oh yeah, Shalonda Yoder, whatever. I mean, and I had to apologize after she came up and said, "Hey, I laughed hard," but she said that it struck a nerve. I said, "Listen, I am so
Huh.
sorry." So you have to. I guess we're in a day and age where you have to be really, really careful. But yet you watch somebody like Don Rickles who goes after every
Oh, man.
ethnic group and he gets away with it.
I don't think he would now. If he was here today,
You
if
may
he
be
uh,
right. You may be right, Naz. Um, but I think what you and I want an audience to know, we want them to understand that our heart is pure, right? I
right.
mean, our heart and our mind and our motive, it is pure. We're obedient to God, and our calling is we want to refresh the hearts of the saints. We're,
That's
we're
true.
refreshing your heart. We want you to walk. We want to give you a 60-minute vacation from life. And in no way are we trying to put down any pocket of people at all. It's not our intent whatsoever. This is simply humor. It's a break from reality. And once in a blue moon, you and I, we still get a few people that will fire off an email or a message here and there. But I think when you become that person, it's like Bum Phillips, the great football coach. When you start listening to the people in the stands, you'll join them. That's why you're the coach. You're making calls that are not popular. And that's what comedians do. Sometimes we say things that are not popular, but we're commenting on society, and it's not always popular.
I don't mind changing a joke because it's going to offend someone in the audience.
Hmm.
And because that's not my goal. My goal is at the end, like you said, make him laugh, forget about problems, and maybe turn to Christ. But if I'm saying something and someone said, hey, you can't say you guys, you have to say you all, or you can't refer to me as he, I want to be, then you know what? I'm sorry, buddy. I'm not going to go there. That's where the political correctness I
No,
mean
you're
is.
right. And you go back to that great Bum Phillips line, that football coach. If you start listening to your critics, you're going to join them. You're not going to be a comedian anymore. You're
Right.
going to do editorials for a newspaper on what people should say. No, we're not. We're comics. We poke fun. We take a stick and we kind of poke fun at things that have gone overboard. We're saying what the masses are thinking.
Exactly. What are you working on right now? What are you?
I'm working. New material is difficult.
Hmm.
Um, every day I try to create or write, and this sounds, comedians, we don't have a lot on our plate. Like if you ask a comic, "Hey, how was your day?" Oh,
Yeah.
whew, I went to the post office, and then went to Ace Hardware. Came home. I wrote a little bit. Uh, took a nap. I'm stressed. I'm exhausted. It was a day, and so with that being said, I mean every day, especially during this time that we're in right now, I'm doing my best to be as creative as I possibly can. Whether
That's
it's
good.
writing something down, it's listening, observing. I'm not a great social person. I don't do well in
Hmm.
circles, crowds, and people where I'm not on stage, and so
Typical comedian.
yeah, I've found that the more I push myself to do that and at least listen or watch and observe, then the creative juices um, start flowing a little bit more.
No. How can people get a hold of you if they want to book you, if they want to do a virtual comedy or a gala, or they want to hire you for next year? Where what are they gonna?
A
How?
wedding,
Or a wedding?
marriage.
I've done weddings before. I don't like to do them anymore. I ask a lot of money because you can't mess it up. You cannot
No,
mess it up.
no, I've done a couple, two or three myself from some of our kids' friends that we've known since middle school, and now they're married. And I did that. You're right. Those are. I hope they're not listening. They're watching this, but they're. I mean, it's. I'd rather drive my shin into a trailer hitch than do that again. It is just. It's nerve
Yeah.
wracking. Well, for
Yeah.
starters, we're narcissistic. The focus is not on us. We're the
Right.
catalyst. We're bringing these two up, this couple, this man and woman, and we're off to the side. You're the guitar player in the corner of the room, and you're not really being, watched, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything David Dean comedy, all one word. David Dean comedy. All the social media, YouTube clips, contact David Dean comedy. That does it.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to see your dry bar, and I pray that this will be a real blessing. Trust me, take the word semi or retired out of the equation, because I truly believe our best is yet to come, and people need to laugh more often. And people who used to sit home on weekends and watch TV and Netflix, they're tired of that, and they're going to come out and see live shows. So
I'm with you, my friend. That's my prayer, is that when this if and when this ends, is that live comedy, live events, they just explode. And I think people are so excited to come out and laugh and not talk about, you know, this pandemic, what it can
I
do.
know.
It wears on people. And I think what you and I do, we are very fortunate because it does offer a bit of a respite to the world.
Amen. Well, thank you so, so much for your time, giving me this hour. And uh, just, you're amazing. You're a good man. You're a good husband. You're a good father. You're a great comedian. And you're the real deal. So thank you so much for your time, man.
Naz, it was my pleasure and an honor to be on your show. Thanks for having me. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. And thank you. If you're watching, remember every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. live on Facebook, Comedian Nazareth, you'll see the Live with Naz show at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time, where you can become the comedian. If you think you're funny, even if you don't, you'll be surprised. Join us and laugh with us and be encouraged with us. Thank you guys so much. Love you and have a great day.
God bless.
God bless.